Hi everyone, I don't normally do this, but I felt I had to in this case. And I don't usually talk about celebrities or anybody in the limelight and what they think on current affairs, just simply because, usually they're totally detached from really what's going on. I mean, just look at people like John Cusack and Kanye West. They haven't got a clue what they're talking about. Patrick Kielty, however, pictured here, he's an Irish presenter. He knows a lot about a border in Northern Ireland and the reasons why the border was removed and the problems that it would cause if one was put there again after Brexit. He's Irish for a start, and also his father, when Patrick Kielty I think was 16, his father was shot by loyalist paramilitaries, so he knows a lot about it. Now he sent a series of tweets at Boris Johnson. I don't normally do this. I don't normally comment on what people have tweeted out, or rather, it's not usually the bulk of my stories and my reports, but I feel I've got to on this because there's so much great information that Patrick Kielty has put in here that maybe some of my viewers weren't aware of, and just reading through them you start to get a bigger picture of just how big a problem this Brexit issue is for Ireland and Northern Ireland. He said this: "Dear Boris Johnson, there is no better Brexit when it comes to the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland. As you seem still bamboozled by all this paddywhackery, here's a few pointers for your next stab in the dark." And he's replying there for Boris Johnson tweeting out he's planned for a better Brexit, which is a Canada plus deal, which, again, is pie in the sky stuff. It's pie in the sky stuff. It's a Canada plus deal. The reason why they call it plus is he wants to add in financial services there, and as I've covered in another video, that's what the Tories really care about. It's the financial services because that's where they get their funding from. Anyway, back to this. He tweeted this out, Patrick Kielty is. My apologies, I don't normally do this, as I say, but I've got to here because this is great. He said this: "Northern Ireland is made up of a majority of unionists, as in the Conservative and Unionist Party, and believe it or not, a rather large minority of nationalists, as in Irish nationalists." So the country's sort of split, or Northern Ireland's sort of split. These Irish nationalists don't see themselves as British, but rather inconveniently as Irish. For over 30 years, we killed each other because of these differences, which means Northern Ireland is nothing like Camden and Westminster. In other words, Boris Johnson, you haven't got a clue. You haven't lived over here. You don't know what you're talking about. And I agree with that. 4. The Good Friday Agreement ended that violence by the following devious magic. Unionists were guaranteed that Northern Ireland would be part of the UK until the majority of Ireland voted otherwise, or majority of Northern Ireland voted otherwise. The Irish border was removed and the island linked so nationalists could pretend that they were already living in a united Ireland. Yes, Tony Blair did sleight of hand much better than you. So the nationalists could be like, well, there's no border, we're Ireland, who cares about the UK? And the unionists were like, hey, we're still part of the UK. Everybody was happy. Okay, we'll end the violence. Just, remove that border and everything's ticky-deboo. Obviously, post-Brexit, that becomes an issue. Some of these nationalists then accepted being part of the UK as their day-to-day lives were essentially Irish. This cunning plan was sold to us on the basis that we're all part of the EU, therefore fixation on nationality was so last World War. Remember it, we're part of the EU anyway. Implementing the Good Friday Agreement was tortuous. Think Brexit with actual bombs, not metaphorical suicide vests. But we have finally made peace, yet 20 years later Northern Ireland remains a divided society. Thanks to your glorious Brexit vision, Northern Ireland will become more divided and as some form of economic border checks will become part of our daily lives. If those checks take place between Northern Ireland and Ireland, the nationalists who were once happy being part of the UK will change their mind. If they take place in the Irish Sea, then unionists will be livid because they want to be part of the UK. They don't want a border with Great Britain. However, they'll still support being part of the UK. The clue is in the unionist bit. Your Brexit lies have opened a Pandora's box for Northern Ireland. It's one reason why the majority of people in Northern Ireland voted to remain in the EU, almost as if they knew more about the fragile equilibrium of their politics than you did, Boris Johnson. Barely mentioned before Brexit, a border poll is now inevitable thanks to your monumental ignorance. Of course it is. I've talked about this. When that poll is eventually held, the nationalists who were once content with being part of Northern Ireland within the UK and EU, will vote to leave the UK to feel Irish and European as they did before Brexit. The poll will be much closer thanks to your Brexit folly and could easily be lost by unionists breaking up the UK. So if the unionists lose that vote, Ireland reunifies. Now, it is in the Good Friday Agreement that's one of the stipulations in the Good Friday Agreement, that at some stage, if there is a vote and the majority of Northern Ireland vote to reunify Ireland, then that's what happens. And what Patrick Kielty is saying there is Boris Johnson's Brexit, it's going to cause it. It's going to cause that election, or, I mean, you could call it an independence referendum, same as Scotland had. Any breakup of the union will be your fault. Boris Johnson is talking to there. A tad inconvenient as a member of the Conservative and Unionist Party. The EU is not responsible for your blundering lack of foresight. Like most people in Northern Ireland, they were happy with the status quo. Exactly. By the time the penny drops that you can't preserve the union you want without the one you don't, it will be too late. It's a beautiful tweet, that is. Really good. You will be remembered not as the Churchillian visionary that you delude yourself to be, but the ignoramus who triggered the breakup of the UK. If there's any justice, all this will come to pass when you're Prime Minister, so you can finally swim in the constitutional sewage you've created. Though we all know you'll be in Nice with your trotters up. That's a reference to Danny Dyer, no doubt, and how he thinks of David Cameron, which is basically the same as what I think of him. Meantime, if you're so concerned about keeping Northern Ireland totally aligned with the rest of the UK, where's your support for our same-sex marriage and women's right to choose? Your silence is deafening. That's a key point, that is. If they're so concerned about keeping Northern Ireland aligned with the UK, well, why has Theresa May refused to come out and back the abortion vote that they had? Of course, the reason that she hasn't done that is because the DUP against it, because the DUP are from the Old Testament, and they're the people who are propping up the Conservative Party. I wanted to highlight that series of tweets because it really does perfectly explain the problems with the post-Brexit Irish border. And wherever you put it, if there's a border anywhere, that's it. And this is why I've said in my previous videos, the only thing I can see post-Brexit with regards to Ireland, the only thing I can vision is there being a vote and Northern Ireland voting to remain in the EU and to reunify their country. I think that was a great series of tweets. I don't usually do this, as I say, but I just wanted to highlight it because that is the view from somebody who is Irish, from somebody who knows Ireland inside out, from somebody who lived through the Troubles, from somebody who's somebody in his family. His father was shot by loyalist paramilitaries, so he knows a lot about it, and he knows the history. Whereas people like Boris Johnson haven't got a clue. They just haven't. Or they have got a clue and don't care because, hey, it doesn't affect them, Jack. And he also perfectly explains why the Tory party are in the mess that they're in. And remember this. Remember, it's the Tory party that got us into this mess. It's the Tory party that are continuing to make a mess out of this mess. Never forget that, when especially in the coming years when, as Patrick Kielty said there might be a border poll and the chances are the nationalists could well win that vote because it will mean remaining in the EU, which Northern Ireland overwhelmingly voted for in the referendum. So I just wanted to do the video explaining the situation over there, explaining why this border is such an issue from an Irish point of view. And I, for one, think Patrick Kielty did a brilliant job of tearing Boris Johnson's bullshit better deal for Brexit apart and showing it for the pie in the sky thinking that he's Boris Johnson. Well done, Patrick Kielty. If you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and click the bell below. Independent voices like mine are being censored across all social media platforms by large tech companies at the behest of governments who don't like the fact that people like me are out there getting more popular, telling the truth and ruining their propaganda. Unfortunately, they come after us monetarily as well, so we have to rely on our audience to fund our work. So if you can support independent media, do so. I've left a link to my Patreon down below, and you can sign up to it for as little as $1 a month, and every dollar helps. I cannot stress that enough. Thanks very much for your support. Until next time, peace and take care.